In concept 2, we are going to be focusing on diseases. And we said in the last section that pathogens are agents that cause disease. So now we're going to be looking at it from a slightly different perspective. So when talking about diseases, we first want to look at this word of homeostasis. And homeostasis is the stability of the internal environment and the mechanisms that maintain that stability. So this is seen often in humans, in all animals really, and this is going to be key when we are talking about diseases. So homeostasis is something that is constantly being threatened. We'll talk about this a lot if you take anatomy, and if an organism doesn't respond to these threats, it can result in disease or death. So a really good example of your body maintaining homeostasis that's easy to understand is body temperature. You know that when your body's too hot, you are going to sweat to try to cool you off. Or if your body's too cold, you're going to get goosebumps and shiver to try to use your muscles to warm yourself up. So your body is constantly being threatened and has to do something, has to have some sort of response to that. If we talk about this in the sense of diseases, viruses and many others, so bacteria, fungi, and even parasites, may infect organisms and disrupt the homeostasis. So if this is disrupting homeostasis, it's going to have some impact on the life functions of that organism. So we're going to spend some time talking about kind of the history behind understanding the process of diseases. And this comes down to the germ theory. And this is where they discovered that disease is caused by the presence of pathogenic microorganisms. And we're specifically going to talk about a couple different scientists, but there are many that contributed to this understanding. Specifically, we're going to talk about Pasteur and Koch, who are the most two recognized for their contributions. However, I do want to pause for a second and think about what we thought before the germ theory. So to put some context to this, germ theory was discovered in the 1860s, which is also the time that Abraham Lincoln was elected president. So really, it wasn't that long ago, and when we're talking about the history of humans. And before the germ theory, people actually thought that bacteria or that microorganisms, mold, whatever, just came from the air. And many scientists went through a long process of actually proving that things come from other living things. So if you have mold on your bread, it didn't just show up there, it came from other mold that was already on the bread. So now we're going to focus on Louis Pasteur, who is a famous chemist who helped come up with the germ theory. There's also some other things that he is known for, but he discovered that fermentation and decay are caused by living microorganisms. So again, this was really big for someone to understand that fermentation, which is caused by growing bacteria, came from other living things and isn't just something that happened by exposure to the air. This led to the pasteurization process that we now know of and associate with our milk. The second major scientist that we need to talk about is Robert Koch, and he is a microbiologist who focused on the findings that Pasteur had already come up with. So he discovered what is a universal method for determining whether a specific bacteria causes a certain disease. And this itself is what we refer to as the germ theory. You'll be doing an activity later today talking you through all of the steps in how the germ theory was discovered and the steps on how we still use that today.